I declare these proceedings of the 74th commencement of Utah Valley University to be in session. Please remain standing for the posting of the colors by the UVU ROTC Color Guard and the national anthem performed by Kylie Bruneel from Eagle, Idaho, who is graduating tonight with a Bachelor of Music in Vocal Performance.
Thank you. Please be seated. I can hear your collective relief at being seated. Welcome to Utah Valley University's 74th commencement ceremony. This evening, we gather for the culminating event of the academic year to recognize our graduating students, as well as family members, friends, community members, and invited guests. We are proud to pay tribute to the dedication and success of all of our students completing degrees that span a broad array of scholarly disciplines. As we share this celebratory moment together, I would note briefly just what a dynamic and prosperous time this is for the university in general. Our reputation as an outstanding teaching university continues to soar, and the physical footprint of our campus has been transformed, accommodating the diverse needs of one of the fastest growing institutions of higher education in the nation. In the year since it opened, the Student Life and Wellness Center has become a wildly popular student spot for recreation, fitness, and reflection, helping students to rejuvenate in mind, body, and spirit. The 244,000 square foot classroom building opened in January, providing a wide variety of additional study and learning spaces for students. By recently completing the purchase of 225 acres in vineyard, the university has doubled its footprint, opening up whole new vistas of opportunity for how we deal with future growth. Already that land houses 4 regular-size intramural fields. Our new Vivint Smart Lab, the only facility of its kind in the Western United States, features cutting-edge technology and tools for marketing and research and training. A historic $16.4 million has been raised for the construction of a new performing and visual arts building. Thank you. This will create critical spaces for the preparation, practice, and performance of the arts on this campus. And we continue to add new programs and degrees to meet student and community needs, including a graduate certificate in cybersecurity, bachelor's degrees in commercial music and Indian Affairs Administration, and a minor in autism studies, to name just a few of these most recent additions. Well, I could go on and on and on, but I won't. Despite the significance of these institutional successes and the many more I could tout, our greatest achievement sits right here before me. As I look at you students and consider all of the effort and sacrifice and trial and success that has brought you to this point, I stand in awe. Truly, you are this year's crowning achievement. Family, friends, and guests, I present to you our honored candidates for graduation. As we celebrate this evening, we are so pleased to be joined by several distinguished guests. Our proceedings will include remarks from Mitt Romney, an iconic figure of leadership in business and public service. We will confer honorary doctoral degrees on Mr. Romney, as well as Friends of UVU, Pamela Atkinson, and the late Rebecca Lockhart, who will be introduced later in the program. Other noted guests in attendance tonight include educational and civic leaders from across the state. I will introduce each platform guest and ask them to stand briefly as his or her name is read. I will also ask that we hold our applause until all of the guests have been introduced, that is, if you would like to go home at some point tonight. With us is Governor of the State of Utah, Governor Gary R. Herbert. With us from the State Board of Education, our Chair Dan Campbell, Nina Barnes, Bonnie Jean Beasley, James Evans, Brady Harris, Robert Marquardt, Teresa Thurer, and Jack Zanger. With us from the UVU Board of Trustees, our Chair Steve Lund, Vice Chair Elaine Dalton, Vice Chair Duff Thompson, Karen Acerson, Alumni Association President Curtis Blair, Student Body President Tyler Berklasich, Tyler's so popular, Greg Butterfield, Taryn Chun, Foundation Chair James Clark, Anne-Marie Lampropoulos, and Terry Shoemaker. From the State Board of Education, Laura Belknap and Jefferson Moss, who is also a member of the State Board of Regents. From the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education, Commissioner David Bueller. Also joining us on the stand from UVU are all of our vice presidents and other members of the President's Cabinet, as well as all of our deans from academic affairs and student life. Would they all rise and be recognized? Finally, UVU's tremendous faculty is represented tonight by Faculty Senate President David Conley. As a teaching institution, UVU is only as impressive and strong as its faculty. Thanks to their exceptional instruction and dedication to students, we are a proud institution of educational excellence. And to represent our staff, we have with us Brett McKechnie, President of the Professional Association of Campus Employees. Our staff members play an integral role in supporting and maintaining a learning environment that fosters our tremendous levels of student success. On that note, I would like to ask all UVU faculty and staff, wherever you may be sitting, to please rise and be recognized. We will now have the opportunity to hear from Tyler Berklasich, President of the UVU Student Association for the 2014-2015 academic year. Tyler, from North Salt Lake, Utah, is graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science with an emphasis in international relations. His contribution this year has been tremendous. He focused his term on providing greater opportunities for all students, promoting campus-wide inclusivity, and building UVU pride. He will also be remembered for a long list of firsts. He helped develop UVU's first ever sexual assault prevention and awareness campaign and first ever online feedback system. He also organized UVU's first ever TEDx event, and he led the student charge in working closely with senior administration to reduce the general student fees by $10. As near as we can tell, this is the first time in the history of UVU that student fees have gone down. It is my great pleasure to now invite President Berklasich to share his remarks.
Thank you, President Holland. I cannot take credit alone for those accomplishments. I must thank my Executive Council of UVUSA, Caleb Tippett, Mallory Wallen, Savannah Buswell, and Riley Archibald, as well as UVUSA Council, our advisors, and the administration for making this past year such an amazing success. I'm elated to be speaking to you all here today. I must apologize to Governor Romney that you guys are all here to see me, even though he thinks you guys are here to hear him, but you have to have a good ego to be student body president. What an incredible ride it has been here at Utah Valley University. As I stand before you today, I am in complete awe of this institution, of what it has become and what it continues to do for so many students. I stand with 5,100 graduating students, congratulate you, and wish you the best as you move on to the next chapter of your life. I also stood before you a little over a year ago, asking for your vote to become student body president. It wasn't because without you, the student voice, that I was able to be put in a position of great responsibility. Over the past year, student government has been working tirelessly for the student body of UVU. With 33 members, we have accumulated over 19,000 hours of service and produced 100 events and activities with 23,000 students and community members in attendance. We advocated for and received 7 full scholarships for the Service Student Council, received approval and funding for 50 new open computer labs in the library to better serve the student population. We hosted a speaker series including Kwaku Mandela, Kyle Beckerman, and Elizabeth Smart. Led a campaign to the state capitol to advocate for lower tuition across the state. And beyond this, just like President said, but is my most favorite thing, we decreased student fees for the first time in UVU history. Thank you. I applaud the work of these students and again recognize this was not done alone. As I look back on my UVU experience, UVU has given me a place to call home. It has taught me about school pride, loyalty, inclusivity, and occasionally education stuff about politics and biology and more education stuff. But I've also come to learn that the world could be ending, yet the #1 concern is and always will be parking for UVU students. I have come to learn that the best thing UVU could have ever have done is to build all of the buildings to be connected, so on our frigid, can't breathe, can't move, 20-degree winters, or our most recent balmy 60-degree winters, we don't have to step outside all day, so take that, BYU. Proud to. But in all seriousness, what I have learned from UVU is so much more than what I have learned opening a textbook, attending class. It is not to say that those are not the fundamental aspects of one's education, but there has been something more that I cannot thank the university enough for teaching me. Nearly 5 years ago, I entered this university like so many of you in front of me, before us and after us, not knowing what to expect, timid, excited, and ready for the college experience, pool parties and babes, which none of those really ever happened for me. We all came with stories though, stories that sometimes we shared and others that only we know. Throughout this journey, I have come to meet the most incredible people that I will never forget. One of my longest friends here at UVU, Elsa Alvarado, has taught me more than she probably knows. From the outside, she's gorgeous with a beautiful smile, darker skin, and she sometimes puts her hair into a bun that makes her look like Fa Mulan. Elsa also is an education major with a passion for underrepresented students within our public education system. But what very few people know is that Elsa has a story that is different than most in our community. Elsa grew up in Fresno, California with two amazing and loving parents who showed her that success is created through hard work and determination. Elsa's parents immigrated to the United States nearly 35 years ago from Mexico and have been working for the betterment of their children ever since. Each of her parents have no college or a complete high school degree. The life that they were given is different, not less, and has required them to work tirelessly for the success of their family. I applaud the Alvarados for what they have done and for their family. They are a family like so many of those in the audience today, and we should celebrate what you all have come to accomplish. With this, Elsa did not know what college was like. She was the first of any of her family members to attend college, therefore having no guidance or insight onto how to tackle 4 years of learning and education. Nonetheless, during her time here at UVU, she has served as a senator for the School of Education for 2 years. With the School of Education, she helped plan and lead a service expedition to Peru this past summer. She was awarded the Teacher of Tomorrow for the entirety of Utah Valley University for the 2014-2015 academic year. At the end of May, she will be completing her first year of teaching first grade. And today, Elsa is graduating. What a moment to celebrate, as Elsa has come so far through very difficult terrain. To everyone else, your stories are no different. The context and the pathway may be different, but the difficulties and the hardships that we have faced are no less compared to those you are sitting next to. My heart is full with what you have been able to accomplish, allowing you to be all in this room today. Another story of a dear friend of mine, Marisa King, has taught me once again to not mindlessly judge a book by its cover. Marisa is someone that I look up to and love deeply. Through her experience as a student here at UVU several years ago, she served as the Vice President of Activities within student government and now is working within student life. She shows up each day continually to work with students to achieve whatever goals these students want to achieve. She has been married to her best friend, Matt King, for the past 5 years, and they are still in love as they were on their wedding day. She has an unconditional, unwavering, absolute love for Disney, Disney movies, Disneyland, Disney princesses, Disney, Disney, Disney. I don't know how to appropriately convey Marisa. You would have to know her to get the full picture of her being constantly happy, in love, and over the past years, leading so many students to success through encouragement, trial by fire, and sometimes holding, if not dragging them through. She doesn't flaunt her success, nor does she like to be talked about so publicly. This past year, she taught us 3 things that we could do as students leaders to become more successful. She challenged us to be more brave, to take our difficulties head on with courage, and to never give up. Second, she encouraged us to surround ourselves with good people. And lastly, to move forward. Marisa did not learn these concepts through the pleasant times. Unfortunately, she learned them through her most difficult times. What was not seen was a deep pain that very few knew about. As long as they can remember, Matt and Marisa both wanted to be parents. They have longed for the day that they could have kids of their own, and what fantastic parents they would be. Unfortunately, due to complications, they have been unable to successfully get pregnant. They have tried for a number of years without success and with much heartache. This past summer, Marisa was out of the office for 2 weeks, which I thought was due to sickness or vacation. What I came to find out, not on her own accord, is that Marisa had lost her set of twins. I cannot imagine this pain that these 2 individuals have had to bear. The only sign of heartache was her absence in the office for those 2 weeks. Many of those around her had no idea what had happened, as they had no idea she was even pregnant. Like so many of us, our stories are hidden. Once she returned to the office, she bore her burdens privately. She smiled, she laughed, and she engaged with students. And she withstood each day, not giving any sign to the heartache and pain that she must have bore. Lastly, a personal story. Not many people know the responsibilities of being a student body president is to send a letter to parents or guardians if a student has passed away. something that bore heavily on my heart over the past year whenever I received notification that we had lost a student. Just 2 months ago, I received notification that we lost a student due to suicide, something that absolutely breaks my heart. I sent the letter to the parents, and a couple weeks later, received a handwritten letter from his parents expressing something that in reality shaped the entirety of this speech. They said, quote, "Our son loved UVU and had great plans. Please share with your school's professors how they can impact the life of a struggling student. There are many and seem most unlikely." I sat in my office, and tears filling my eyes, and I prayed that I could do this family justice, that I could share a message of hope and love on behalf of their son and so many others that have left too soon. Their stories taught me a lesson that I seem to have forgotten. We all have stories, battles, hardships, and heartache, and rarely do we know the full extent of what people are truly facing in their lives. Nonetheless, we are a society that takes things at face value, never taking the time to get to know these people. I hope the lessons of these stories are connecting with your stories and experiences at UVU. Are we not a student body and a professorship committed to the betterment and worth of the individual? Is this not what makes this institution of learning so great? We walked hallways filled with friendship, sat in classrooms of personalization, and individuals that enter this campus are now leaving as a community. We must take the torch forward beyond these walls as Wolverines, because this is what we have been taught, and I must argue is so much greater than anything learned in a textbook. My message to you today is to let you know that you are loved. To those in this audience that are struggling with self-worth and appreciation, know that you are important. To the moms in the audience who day in and day out of juggling the daily hardships of life and somehow manage to be sitting in the audience today, graduating, you are noticed and we are celebrating with you. To those who think that this life isn't worth living, it gets better. To the misfits, the nobodies, the loners, the stoners, the non-religious to the religious, to whatever color, male or female, straight or gay, you belong. Whether you belong with those like you or in a group that looks nothing like you, you belong. And if you feel like you don't, then shame on me. Shame on us. Shame on no one reaching out to you to make you know that you are worth something more than a grade on a paper or a number in a university. You are a human with individual worth that you have forgotten, and I am sorry. It is for those that have forgotten this that I plead, that we fight for their worth through kindness, empathy, and love, that we no longer hesitate to say hello to or offer a friendship of reality rather than a friendship on social media, that a like is expressed in words and a smile rather than a click of a button. Let us send 140 characters of encouragement by word of mouth rather than a virtual tweet. Can we break away from mere moments of a day to change an individual for a lifetime? I've come to learn these things through my own mistakes and my own hardship. I have been on the outside and been labeled as the outcast. I felt alone and abandoned, but because of my family, friends, and community, especially here at UVU, I was able to pull through to be confident and find the self-love that I came to learn that we all deserve. If we challenge ourselves, if we become aware, if we strive to seek out those who are different, accept diversity, and truly believe that we can change the world, and I do not mean a mediocre, half-hearted, something that we have heard of for so long belief, but truly believe that you, each of you, can create a revolution that we will acknowledge and appreciate the individual stories of all those we encounter, we will change the world. Today, we are able to celebrate. Like Elsa, you are graduating. Marisa and Matt are expecting twin boys in August. And on behalf of grieving parents, a message has been able to be shared. So class of 2015, your stories are beautiful. They are filled with hardship, pain, love, excitement, laughter, and everything in between. Let us celebrate our stories together and not just today, but for the rest of our lives. The world is grand, but your lives are grander, so live them beautifully. It was an honor being your student body president. I thank you from the bottom of my heart and owe this institution my life and will do my best to give back to the students that come after us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, for your excellent words and service. I would now like to introduce a few more of our exemplary students. Seated with us here on the front rows are UVU's valedictorians for 2015. These 16 students have distinguished themselves through exceptional academic achievement and have been selected to represent the university's colleges and schools, which may name a valedictorian at the baccalaureate or associate degree level or both. On pages 10 through 17 in your program, you will find more information about these extraordinary individuals. Valedictorians, would you please rise? Audience, please join me in a round of applause for this impressive group. You may be seated. Today, the graduating class of 2015 becomes the newest generation of UVU alumni. With that in mind, we are now privileged to hear a few words from Curtis Blair, President of the UVU Alumni Association and a member of the UVU Board of Trustees. Immediately following Curtis's remarks, the UVU Symphony Orchestra will perform Bacchanal by Camille Saint-Saëns. Curtis.
Thank you, President. You know, I've always been fascinated by brand marketing and how corporate logos illustrate meaningful messages about their company. On the screen, you will recognize some of the world's most notable companies and their distinguished logos. What makes a logo powerful is sometimes the hidden element that, once discovered, completes the meaning of the logo and makes a connection with their customers. This realization is sometimes referred to as the second discovery. Take, for example, this logo from FedEx. Have you ever noticed the right pointing arrow between the E and the X? How about this logo? This company carries every product from A to Z. Even the little arrow makes a smiley face. And this little image, the bear in the Toblerone chocolate bar. And here is the Pittsburgh Zoo logo. Do you notice the gorilla and the lion? I'm sure the cyclists out there have discovered the bicyclist in the Tour de France logo, or the 31 in the Baskin-Robbins logo. How about the two people enjoying Tostito chips in this logo? Now take a look carefully at this logo. Do you see something special? By a show of hands, how many of you just now discovered that the first U in the UVU logo contains an outline of the state of Utah? Now, you graduates shouldn't be raising your hands. Just as all great logos of the corporate world and how they possess a second discovery element that makes them relevant, more meaningful and powerful, each of you with a diploma in hand now have the license and the commission to discover your special contribution and sometimes hidden talent that will make you great. Wherefore, as the duly appointed president of the Utah Valley University Alumni Association, I charge you, the graduating class of 2015, to uphold the values celebrated in this mission of its institution from which you have received your higher education. Therefore, I charge you to go forth from this ceremony as people of integrity, as lifelong learners and leaders, and as stewards of our globally interdependent community. Having prepared you to accept these responsibilities, I invite you to signify your willingness to uphold these values by announcing "I will" to our assembly in response to the following question. Graduates, will you accept these responsibilities? Come on, Wolverines, you can do better than that. Graduates, will you accept these responsibilities? Excellent. Therefore, this 30th day of April, 2015, I invoke my authority as president of the Utah Valley University Alumni Association and officially declare that you are alumni of Utah Valley University and will join with those who have preceded you. Together with 198,000 alumni, you will always be Wolverines.
Thank you, Curtis, for your encouraging words to our newest alumni. And thank you to the UVU Symphony Orchestra for the beautiful music, which they will now perform. thank you to our UVU Symphony and Dr. Chun Chow, outstanding direction and performance tonight. It's now my privilege to share just a few thoughts with you. And if I were really smart at this point, I would simply follow some of the best graduation speech I ever got. A number of years ago, as I was working to prepare my first set of commencement remarks, I hit a bit of a blank spot and turned to my then 7-year-old daughter, Gracie, who's here with me tonight again, and said, "What should I say to the students at graduation?" Without missing a beat, she looked up and said, "Tell them congrats, bada bing, bada boom, have a great summer." Is that because you like the story, or I'm to sit down now? It's probably all you need from the speech, certainly all you want. Nevertheless, I press on. But just with one little nugget of advice for you as you take this momentous step forward in your life. To introduce that idea, I turn to that rich and wonderful world of the American founding. When Thomas Jefferson and his colleagues put pen on paper and asserted that everyone was endowed with certain inalienable rights, they launched a revolution. They also launched a major linguistic controversy. In his original rough draft of the Declaration, Jefferson wrote of our inalienable rights. By the time it got through the final drafting process and back from the printer, the Declaration read, unalienable rights. Ever since, prominent academic linguists have vigorously debated whether it should be unalienable rights or inalienable rights. Fortunately, this crucial controversy was recently settled by one of the great reigning masters of the English language, George W. Bush. Sorry, Governor Romney, I know he's a friend. Who on a trip through Europe a few years ago referred to our unalienable rights. As Jefferson and his colleagues went on to say, among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, the formulation here is very interesting. It's well noted that Jefferson's logic and language follow exactly in line with the writing of English philosopher John Locke from roughly a century before. That is with one big exception. Where Jefferson writes life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, Locke writes life, liberty, and property. The distinction here gets at the heart of the one message I would like to leave with you tonight. Tonight is a happy night, and the faculty and administrators of UVU have no greater wish for you than that you go forward and forge a life of happiness. In many respects, what we have been up to here with you for the last few years is doing everything in our power to equip you with skills and habits that we believe will substantially add to your ability to find happiness in this life. Whether it's in experiencing the joy that can come from reading a truly great piece of literature, or looking at a magnificent work of art, or creating from scratch a new and workable technology, I trust that you leave here with abilities and inclinations that open up whole new realms of happiness and satisfaction that just did not exist for you before you started. I also trust that you leave here with far more advanced skills critical to earning a living and acquiring wealth. That's important. It's essential even. And we wish you great success in those areas too. My one caution, however, is think more like Jefferson and the founders than like Locke. When it comes to your life and your liberty, pursue happiness, recognizing that happiness is about something bigger and richer than property or material wealth alone. To underscore this point, I might turn to an array of luminaries in philosophy or the social sciences, but for tonight, perhaps the simple wisdom of a grandmother will do. When John Ortberg of Barrington, Massachusetts was growing up, he spent quite a bit of time with his grandmother. The picture he paints of her would seem to come straight from a Norman Rockwell painting. By the time he knew her, she was a widow, having raised 6 children on her own. He also remembers her as extremely gracious and loving, except for the fact that she was the most ruthless Monopoly player he had ever known. To get a clear contemporary picture of this, imagine that Donald Trump married Kim Kardashian and they had a child. Picture that child as an adult on reality TV, and you'll have some idea what his grandmother was like playing Monopoly. As Ortberg says, when I would get my money at the beginning of the game, I wouldn't want to let go of it. But my grandmother understood the name of the game was acquisition. The money was simply how you keep score. So every time she landed on something, she would buy it. And then she would mortgage that to get something else, and so forth. Eventually, she would become master of the board. She would beat us every time. And then when she had finished defeating us, she would look at us and say, "Someday, you'll learn how to play the game." I hated it when she said that. Someday, you'll learn how to play the game. Then one summer, I played all summer long, every day, with a kid who lived kitty corner from us. We would start playing in the morning, play through lunch, and right up until it was time to go home to dinner. That summer, I learned how to play the game. I learned that money's how you keep score. I learned how to become master of the board. So when that fall came and we went to this little cabin for a vacation, I was ready to play Monopoly with my grandmother. I was ready to do whatever it took to beat my grandmother. My palms were sweaty as we started to play. Relentlessly, inexorably, I drove her off the board. This game Monopoly can do strange things to you. I can still remember, it happened at Marvin Gardens. I looked at my grandmother. She was an old lady. She was a widow. She had raised my mother. She loved me, and I took everything she had. I destroyed her financially and emotionally. I watched her give me her last daughter and quit in utter defeat. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. But then my grandmother had one more thing to teach me. She said to me, "Now, John, it all goes back in the box, you know. All the houses and the hotels, boardwalk and Park Place, the railroads and utilities, and all of that wonderful, wonderful money, it all goes back in the box." Well, I didn't want it to go back in the box. I wanted to leave the game out, bronze it maybe, as a perpetual testimony to my skill at being master of the board. It all goes back in the box, she said, which is another way of saying, of course, none of it was ever really yours in the first place. It was here long before you were here, this game, and it will be here long after you're done. For a little while as a player, you get to manage a little bit of it, but none of it was ever really yours. The players come, the players go, the players always come, and the players always go. And the game goes on. It all goes back into the box, my grandmother would say to me. As I look out across this massive sea of bright, talented, and well-trained dynamos, I see waves and waves of future success. Whether that success is great material success or not, I hope you will all remember that happiness is more than property. Giving of your time and talents and treasure to other people and great causes is not just noble, it is a source of genuine and lasting joy. It's been said that you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. So you take that spectacular new UVU degree of yours, and by all means, make a living, make a great living, but most of all, make a life, and a blissful one at that. Thank you very much. I'm honored at this time to introduce our commencement speaker, Governor Mitt Romney. You will likely recognize his name from the 2012 presidential campaign when he ran as the Republican Party's candidate. But Mitt Romney's legacy began well before 2012 and now continues well beyond that election. Mr. Romney stepped into the national spotlight in 1999 when he took the helm as president and CEO of the Salt Lake Organizing Committee for the 2002 Winter Olympics in our own backyard. With prudence, intelligence, and strength, he unwound major physical, financial, and ethical problems and renewed state, national, and international enthusiasm for the event. Impressed with these and other key accomplishments, the voters of Massachusetts elected him as governor from 2003 to 2007. During this time, he oversaw the reduction of a $3 billion deficit and was credited with creatively addressing healthcare reform that provided near universal health insurance access that enjoyed broad bipartisan support. His previous and current business accomplishments are just as striking. Before entering the political arena, Mr. Romney was CEO of Bain Company, a global management consulting firm that he helped lead out of financial crisis. He later co-founded Bain Capital, a private equity firm that he grew to become one of the largest and most successful in the nation. He served as director of the company or its predecessor from 1993 to 2012, and again from 2009 to 2011. He rejoined the board in 2012. Following the 2012 election, Mr. Romney joined the board of Marriott International as the executive partner group chairman for Solomir Capital, owned by his son Tag. And somehow, amidst all his achievements, he found time to author 2 books and be named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2012. He and his wife Ann have 5 sons and 23 grandchildren. On behalf of Utah Valley University, I welcome you to campus in this ceremony and sincerely thank you, Mr. Romney, for your life of service and leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Mitt Romney.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What a welcome. President Holland, Governor Herbert, good to have you here. And the First Lady is here as well, and trustees and regents and other dignitaries. Special thanks to the faculty who've devoted your life to learning and to teaching and to sharing what you know and feel with these young people. And to the weary parents and families, it's good to have you here. And to the class of 2015, well done and congratulations. To you parents, the years of investment and prayers have added up to this joyful achievement. Hopefully you're about to experience the new American dream, which is no longer owning your own home, it is getting kids out of the home you own. My young grandson is understandably concerned about where exactly lions and tigers actually live. He hears that they live in Africa, but he's not entirely sure where that is. When I told him I was coming here tonight, he asked whether I'd see any on the way. It's a funny thing about little kids. They don't see much beyond what's around them. They see their family and their school and maybe their city or town, but they just can't imagine distant places. Their vision, their world is like a small circle, bounded by their very limited experience. Now, having completed 16 or more years of education, your world has become breathtakingly large, almost without boundaries, with such vastness, with so many possible directions that you could take. Some of you may understandably feel somewhat anxious and uncertain. You may even be tempted to look for a smaller, more comfortable world, one that's less complex and less demanding of you. That's not who you are, and that's not what you've been prepared at UVU to do. To experience a fulfilling, purposeful life, one thing you're going to have to do is this: live a large life. Living large means embracing every fruitful dimension of life. It means continuing to expand your world and engaging in it as fully as you can. Now, let me offer a few suggestions about how you might do that. The first involves your friends. I remember some years ago sitting in a class, looking around the room and thinking to myself, I'd probably never see any of these guys again after I graduated. All my attention was focused on the professor and what was being taught. But you know what? I've forgotten almost everything that was being taught. It's the classmates I remember. And it's those friends that I value most today. 40 years since my graduation, the guys in my 6-person study group continue to get together. We congratulate one another on our highs, and we've consoled one another on our lows. Believe it or not, your parents can also become even closer friends than they are today. My friend Stuart Stevens decided to take his father to every single Ole Miss football game, home or away. What's unusual about that is that Stuart's father is 95 years old. And Stuart had moved away from home for college 40 years ago. He lives in Vermont. His dad lives in North Carolina. Most of the games would be in Mississippi. So these father-son excursions would involve a great deal of time and travel and long, long talks. He would dig deep into understanding his dad, his personality, his dreams, his fears. And delving so far into his father's personhood, their friendship deepened and their relationship expanded in such interesting ways, by the way, that a noted New York publishing house, Knopf, will publish a book about their experience this fall. Your life will be larger if you value and nurture friendships. Friends from here at UVU, friends in your own home, and friends in the growing circle of your life. Now, for most of you, living life to the fullest will also mean marriage and children. I don't expect that everyone here believes, as I do, that the Bible is the Word of God, or even that it's inspired by God. But if not, then at least you'd have to acknowledge that it represents the wisdom of the ages, written by extraordinary thinkers and philosophers. Either way, what it says warrants serious attention. In the very first pages, Adam gives this direction. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. The one flesh part we don't have much trouble with. But the part about leaving mom and dad and getting married trips some people up. Now, I'm surely not going to tell you when to tie the knot. You've got parents who'll do that. But I will tell you that marriage has been the single most rewarding part of my life by far. Marriage involves passion and conflict, emotion, fear, hope, compromise, understanding. In short, it's living to the max. And then children. Here the Bible also has some advice. Children are a heritage of the Lord, it says, as arrows in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. Now, I'm not sure whether having 5 sons qualifies as having a full quiver, but I can affirm that they brought immeasurable happiness as promised by the psalmist. And more to my point, they engaged Ann and me in ways we would not have expected. On one occasion, Ann and I were invited to speak at the Harvard Business School about our choice of careers. I as a management consultant, and she as a full-time mom. Ann was reluctant, in part because 2 other couples would also be speaking on the same topic, and both of the other women had chosen to be Wall Street bankers. In the class, the other couples went first, and then I followed, and then Ann was last. And she explained that while she expected to have a career outside the home in the future, she had chosen to be a full-time mom until her 5 kids were raised. And she went on to explain that her job had required more of her than she imagined. She was psychologist, tutor, counselor, scoutmaster, nutritionist, nurse practitioner, budget director, and on and on. When she sat down, the class was silent for a few seconds, and then the folks rose in standing ovation. Golda Meir, the former Prime Minister of Israel, was asked what her greatest accomplishment was. Raising my daughter, she said. Marriage and children expand your world and engage you more fully in it. Now, some of you have been to Hires, a burger joint that's not terribly far from here. It's one of my favorites. I hear a hoop up there, yeah. Its founder, Don Hales, put out a little book of his homespun wisdom. He says that to be happy requires three things: someone to love, something to look forward to, and something to do. In other words, work. Now, you might be inclined to think that a Garden of Eden life would be preferable to working a job, but you'd be wrong. I'm convinced that Adam and Eve would have been bored to tears if they'd stayed in that garden. No kids, no challenges, no jobs. I think that making Adam grow his own food by the sweat of his brow was a blessing, not a curse. Of course, there's a lot not to like about a job: the early alarm clock, the rush hour traffic, the stress. But work engages you in life. You come to know more people, to understand their motivations and their values, to learn the intricacies of the enterprise that employs you. Don't waste your time bemoaning or complaining about your job. Don't skim by with a minimum of effort. Dive in. Get more from your job than the paycheck. Hard work is living large. Now, there's part of your life that you won't welcome. Bad things that happen to you. If you're at all like I was, you imagine that bad things happen infrequently, and that when they do, they typically happen to other people. I used to sit around in church and look around the congregation. Everyone was smiling and happy. Life seemed to be nothing but puppies and pansies for everybody. And then my church asked me to serve as the pastor of my congregation. And as pastor, I got to really know the people behind the faces. And to my surprise, many of them held what Ann and I call a bag of rocks behind their back. That bag of rocks could be a chronic illness, a battle with some kind of addiction, a child that was struggling in school, unemployment, a financial crisis, withering loneliness, or a marriage on the rocks. To my surprise, almost every single family faced one kind of challenge or another. They all had a bag of rocks behind their backs. We all will hurt. Engaging in your world means accepting that hurt and confronting it and endeavoring to ascend above it so that you can keep pursuing a fulfilling and abundant life. During my campaign, I met Sam Schmidt in Las Vegas. In January of 2000, Sam's Indianapolis racing car hit the wall. This father of two young children spent 5 months on a respirator, and he became quadriplegic. He can now move nothing below his neck. He and I spoke about his life. His morning begins with a 2 to 3 hour routine for bowel, bladder, teeth, shower, and dressing. That'd be enough for a lot of people to just give up. But not Sam. Sam owns and manages an Indianapolis car racing team, which regularly dominates the Firestone Indy Lights, having won 60 races. And he himself has actually begun to drive again. He has a Corvette that has been fitted out with special controls. To accelerate, he blows on this little air tube, and to brake, he sucks the air out of it. To turn left or right, he looks carefully left or right, respectively. Accordingly, he told his racing buddies, "You got to keep the bikinis out of the grandstands." Now, Sam's disability is still there. He endures it every day, every hour. But that hasn't kept him from fully engaging in life. Your career may be very different than you expect. The biggest departure from my predictable career path came with my decision to run for political office. When I stepped into the auditorium to debate Ted Kennedy in Boston's historic Faneuil Hall, I turned to Ann and I said to her, "In your wildest dreams, did you see me running for U.S. Senate?" "Mitch," she said, "you weren't in my wildest dreams." Actually, she didn't say that. That was a joke I bought. Now, through all my occupations, I've experienced successes and failures. You may not have heard, I lost in 2012. I'm asked what it felt like to lose to President Obama. Not as good as winning would have been. Failures aren't fun, but they are inevitable. More importantly, failures don't have to define who you are. Some people measure their life by their secular successes. How high on the corporate ladder they got, how much money they made, did they do better in school, or did they do better than their high school classmates? One business partner of mine went back to his high school reunion in Fort Scott, Kansas. Now, as a wealthy financier, he expected that he would be voted by his 50 or so former classmates as the most successful in his graduating class. But to his dismay, a local doctor won that award. So at the reunion 5 years later, this partner of mine chartered a jet to fly him to Fort Scott. Taking no chances, he had it buzz the town before landing at the tiny airport. And this year, he, of course, won the vote. If that's the vote you're looking for, you're bound to be disappointed, because life has way too much chance and serendipity and luck to be ensured that kind of success. And if your life is lived for money and position, it'll be a shallow and unfulfilling journey. The real wealth in life is in your friendships, your marriage, your children, what you've learned in your work, what you've overcome, your relationship with God, and in what you've contributed to others. That last dimension, contribution to others, is often the most overlooked and most undervalued. Tom Monahan's father died when Tom was just 4. His mother entrusted him to a Catholic orphanage because she couldn't care for him. He graduated from high school and enrolled in the University of Michigan, those other Wolverines. The tuition proved to be beyond his reach. So to help meet costs, he and his brother bought a little pizza shop for $900. And then he expanded it to 3 shops. And his brother, he wanted his money back, so Tom bought him out for a used Volkswagen. He changed the name of his shops to Domino's, and Tom became a wealthy man. He bought a Bugatti automobile for $8.4 million. He bought the Detroit Tigers, won the World Series the next year. He began construction of a massive modern home, one that would rival his majestic corporate office in Ann Arbor, Michigan. When I met him in 1998, I was surprised to find him seated in a closet-side antechamber to what had once been his lavish and spacious executive suite. He'd sold the Tigers, sold the car, and he'd stopped construction on his mansion. Tom had signed what was called the millionaire's vow of poverty. Accordingly, he would not drive a luxury car, fly in a private plane, or assume any of the trappings of wealth. And that included, by the way, trading his impressive office for the little cubicle where I'd found him. Tom explained that reading the Bible and the essays of C.S. Lewis had reminded him of his upbringing in the Catholic orphanage. He wanted to change his life and devote his remaining years to service. Not long after our meeting, on behalf of the company I represented, Bain Capital, I ultimately wrote a check to Tom to buy Domino's from him for over $1 billion. All but a small living stipend. He then turned around and donated to Catholic charities. And he founded a college and named it, not after himself, but after Mary, Ave Maria University. I asked him just a couple of weeks ago, what was the most rewarding part of your life? Winning the World Series? Building Domino's? Driving that Bugatti? You can guess his answer. It wasn't the toys, he said. I've had enough toys to know how important they aren't. It was giving back through the university. Living life in fullness includes serving others and doing so without pride or personal gain. It'll fill your heart, expand your mind. I've seen that kind of service in large and small ways in my own family. My sister's devoted the last 45 years of her life to the care and development of her Down syndrome son. My wife volunteered as a teacher at a Catholic school for at-risk girls. My mother was a frequent visitor to the homes of shut-ins and widows. My brother-in-law served in the U.S. Navy. My cousin Joan was foster mother to 57 children. My dad and I both ran for office. Now, wait a second, you'll say, that last item, running for office, may not seem like real service to you. I know that for some, politics is an occupation, and a fine one at that. But for Dad and me, politics came after our careers were over. And we believed that we could really help people if we'd been elected. Now, most of you probably won't run for office, but the country needs all of you to serve. America faces daunting challenges: generational poverty, looming debt, a warming climate, and a world that's increasingly dangerous and tumultuous. Washington appears inept, powerless, and without a strategy to overcome any of these. America needs your passion, your impatience with inaction, your participation in the political discourse. Engaging in your world includes engaging in citizenship. Stay informed, influence others, campaign for people you trust, and for the sake of preserving our freedom, vote. Now, this cozy little world of your childhood is long gone. You may be tempted to try to create for yourself that same kind of small and safe circle, concentrating on entertainments for yourself, or doing the minimum at work, reading nothing because nothing's been assigned, avoiding meaningful commitments, complaining about the inevitable unfairnesses of life. Alternatively, you can live large by expanding your world, engaging in your world, constantly learning, nourishing friendships, overcoming reversals, and serving others. That is the road less traveled, and it will make all the difference. God bless you in your life's journey, and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Romney, for the insight and the inspiration you've brought to UVU and our graduating class. Members of the UVU Board of Trustees will now present honorary doctorates to Mr. Romney, as well as Pamela J. Atkinson and Rebecca D. Lockhart. Trustee Stephen Lund, will you and Mr. Romney please come forward for the first presentation?
On behalf of the UVU Board of Trustees, it is my pleasure to present Mitt Romney with an honorary doctorate of business. This honor is presented to Mr. Romney for his broad range of expertise as a leader in both private and public sectors, and for his unwavering pursuit of personal and professional excellence. His distinguished career has been marked by financial stability, innovative problem solving, and undaunted resolve in the face of great obstacles. His life is indeed a testament to the power of integrity and ingenuity meeting commitment and perseverance. Propelled by these virtues, Mr. Romney became a reputable figure of business and rapidly rose to political acclaim in America and around the world. The devoted son of a former famous governor, a supportive spouse, an involved father of 5 sons, and an active giver of quiet community service and philanthropy, he skillfully manages a set of demanding personal commitments that are commendable in and of themselves and make his public and commercial successes that much more impressive. Altogether, these practices and successes demonstrate a towering accomplishment which is perfectly in alignment with many of Utah Valley University's core themes. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of Utah Valley University hereby confers upon Mitt Romney the Honorary Doctorate of Business, realized this 30th day of April 2015 in Orem, Utah.
Extend my congratulations to Mr. Romney. We admire you. We thank you. I would now like to invite the Honorable Governor Gary R. Herbert to join me at the stand, along with Trustee Elaine Dalton, to assist in awarding Pamela J. Atkinson an Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters. Pamela, please come forward while the trustees present your honorary degree.
On behalf of UVU Board of Trustees, it's my privilege to present Pamela J. Atkinson with an Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters. Few citizens have embraced opportunity to serve their community as unreservedly as Ms. Atkins has. Indeed, she has served as a tireless advocate for the state's most vulnerable populations, including the impoverished, the underprivileged, and the homeless, residents of Salt Lake City area and beyond. Her inspirational service stems from her personal experience with poverty as a child raised by a single mother in England. Whether testifying before the Utah State Legislature, advising the governor, or educating community leaders on issues related to homelessness, Ms. Atkinson has been a sensitive and vigilant mentor for more than 2 decades. She has demonstrated a deep love for all and a commitment to education as a founding member and former chair of the UVU National Presidential Advisory Board, which played a key role in gathering support for UVU's transition to university status. She continues to lead by example and actively volunteers her time with the Volunteers of America Homeless Outreach Team, and has helped establish charitable clinics for the medically underserved around the state. Through her example, she portrays hope to those she helps and instills the volunteer spirit in UVU, that UVU and the surrounding community are truly fortunate to know Ms. Atkins and benefit and learn from her pattern of generosity. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of Utah Valley University hereby confers upon Pamela J. Atkinson the Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters.
There's a woman who's been practicing everything that's been preached tonight. Pamela, we're indeed grateful for your shining example of generosity and count you as our friend. We will now award an Honorary Doctorate of Law to one of the university's most steadfast supporters, Rebecca D. Lockhart. As many of you know, Becky passed away from a rare brain disorder in January. So I invite her daughter Hannah to join me and Trustee Duff Thompson at the podium to accept the award in her honor.
On behalf of the UVU Board of Trustees, I am pleased to present an Honorary Doctorate of Law in honor of Rebecca D. Lockhart. Many of the milestones that Mrs. Lockhart achieved in her life and career can be counted as momentous milestones for UVU and the entire state of Utah as well. As Utah's first female Speaker of the House, Mrs. Lockhart had a keen sense of the law, which she used to foster a collaborative atmosphere and empower those around her by encouraging input from every member of the House as they passed laws to benefit the citizens of Utah. During her tenure, the state enacted a balanced budget every year and invested in Utah's most critical priorities, including funding for transportation, education, and economic development. A tireless champion for the university, she was instrumental in helping UVU achieve university status in 2008, as well as many other institutional high points. These include funding for the classroom building and moving the Acute Equity Initiative much further than most thought possible, something she did in concert with her legislative colleagues and with the support of the governor. This achievement substantially corrected a funding imbalance in Utah higher education that had existed for years and most assumed would continue for years. Before and during her historic 16-year legislative career, including a term as Assistant Majority Whip, Mrs. Lockhart served as a remarkable role model, and her example has influenced countless lives. Indeed, UVU students, faculty, and staff can look to Mrs. Lockhart's legacy as a benchmark for excellence. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of Utah Valley University hereby confers upon Rebecca D. Lockhart the honorary degree of Doctorate of Law, presented to her daughter, Hannah Lockhart, and realized this 30th day of April, 2015, in Orem, Utah.
Speaker Lockhart was a good friend to the Utah system of higher education, to UVU, and to me personally. We remain grateful for her example and miss her dedication and passion. And I'm going to take a little presidential prerogative at this point with Hannah here. She doesn't know what I'm about to do, nor does anyone on this stand. Becky was immensely proud of this young lady. She talked about her all the time. They had a wonderful relationship. And I'm just here to tell you she would be even more proud of you tonight, because I'm taking the opportunity to tell you that tomorrow you'll be getting a letter in the mail informing you that thanks to your outstanding portfolio and application, you have been admitted to UVU's MBA program.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I just thought you'd want to know that along with 10,000 of your closest friends, so. It's now time for the main and highest purpose of tonight's proceedings, the presentation of student candidates for degrees, first for masters, then for undergraduates. Jeffrey Olson, Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs, will now join me and present the candidates for graduation.
I invite the candidates for Masters of Business Administration, Master of Education, and Master of Science in Nursing degrees to please rise. Candidates, please remain standing as you are joined by the undergraduates. Candidates for Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Fine Arts, Bachelor of Music, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Social Work, Associate in Applied Science, Associate in Arts, Associate in Pre-Engineering, Associate in Science, Associate in Science in Business, and Associate in Science in Nursing, diplomas, certificates of proficiency, and certificates of completion, please stand. President Holland, on behalf of the faculty, I present the candidates for master, bachelor, and associate degrees, diplomas, and certificates. These candidates have completed all requirements for the respective degrees, diplomas, and certificates, and the faculty has approved their candidacy pursuant to the final completion of all of their requirements. President, I now recommend that the master, bachelor, and associate degrees, diplomas, and certificates be awarded to them.
Candidates, you have fulfilled all requirement for the appropriate master's, bachelor's, and associate degrees, diplomas, and certificates, and have been recommended by the faculty for graduation. By virtue of the authority vested in the Utah State Board of Regents and delegated by them to me, I hereby confer upon you the appropriate degree, diploma, or certificate. You may now move your tassels from the right to the left side of your mortarboard to indicate your graduation from Utah Valley University. While the graduates are still standing, the rest of you may be seated. While the graduates are still standing, I think this would be a great opportunity for you to acknowledge your families and friends with a round of applause for all the support and encouragement they've offered you. Class of 2015, please be seated and get a job. Congratulations. These honors are rightly deserved. To all of our guests this evening, I wish to again extend my gratitude to you for gathering for this singular celebration. Graduates, may this night always serve as a source of inspiration and direction on your way to brightness, bright futures, and remarkable contributions, all of which are well within your grasp. As we close, I ask that the graduates and audience remain seated as our platform guests exit the stage and begin the recessional. We then invite the graduates to join the recessional and ask the audience to please remain seated until all of the graduates have left the arena floor. Thank you again for sharing this important moment with us tonight.